Hey guys, Lukey here, coach of the Allvine City Beacons, and welcome back. It has been a hot minute, but the DPDL is back with its signature low tier, and that means I'm fucking back because I will never miss one of these so long as I live. And I don't have a ton of time. It's Friday morning. Have some people coming. Got to get my ass in gear. But I did want to talk at least before too many of the matches happen. I've already played my week one and do a little bit of a team breakdown as well as talk about some of the other teams and give you some thoughts on what I think about them. So, as always, I start with a breakdown of my team because here are my beacons for another season. I'm actually just coming off my first ever competitive draft league win in another league, Nixie and Matt, and in one of the leagues that was really poorly run, Canava. We've been just trying to keep our skills sharp and just messing around. And the last league we played in the spring, I actually reeled off 9 straight and won, and it felt kind of nice. And I'm excited. I still have the spark and the excitement to play. I'm not burnt out of draft right now. And then basically with my finals match a couple days away, Boss drops this announcement, and I'm like, oh fuck yes, like let's just get right after it. So my goal was my goal always is to draft guys that I haven't used before, and I kind of broke this rule because my team here you can see it. I usually record these mostly podcast form, but there is some light visual accoutrement here. So you can see my squad middle of the screen. Two of the members, Morpeko and Weepin' Bell, are actually returnees from the squad that I just won a championship with. I will go into that in a bit more detail as I talk about each mon. But I looked at the tier list, and the one thing I love about DPDL is Boss and Omerta, or really whoever is tiering, I think always does a really good job. There's very few complaints. I think for the most part tiers are fair and even, and it makes you really think about what the value of each guy is to you in a certain slot in the role you need. There were a few that I was I would really question. The only ones I think that jump out are the complex bands on Combuskin and Phalanx. Phalanx having no retreat band. Ryan drafted it, I think, and then hastily dropped it, I think, when he realized that move was banned, because Phalanx is hot garbage without it. And Combuskin at 14 points without speed boost. I think Combuskin's more of like a 7 or 8 pointer without that. And honestly, I think with speed boost, 14, 15 points is within the realm of like reasonable for it. Having just used it at a similar power level to this, I thought it was totally fine. But anyway, no one drafted either of these things for the moment, so it's not an issue. Some of the other bands, Shell Smash, I think, is the thing to keep in mind. So like mons like Torterra, Huntail, Gorbis, Crustle, those guys don't have access to their big bad boosting move. Quiver Dance is allowed. That clearly got some people upset, but I think it's totally fine. In fact, I was trying to push a couple guys into grabbing dust stalks because I think at this level, I think it'd be hilarious. So anyway, I always struggle with the first pick in the draft. I always have a list of guys that I want to use, mons that I think are interesting, and that I think can fill different roles on teams. But I always struggle with the first pick. And so my back room this draft was James, and then my boys Nixie and Matty V. Last DPDL Low Tier season, Matt used Zatu with the nickname Zatchuli, and I really loved it. Not just the incredible nickname, but the fact that Zatu is so fucking toolsy. And here was a 17-point Mon, really good speed tier at base 95, and when I was telling James that was on my radar, he was like, "Yeah, no, let's go with it." And obviously, if you've seen my first match, Zatu just absolutely pops off. Um, so what does Zatu do? So obviously, in low tier, psychic types take on much more importance because there aren't a ton of good dark types, there aren't very many good steals, and all of a sudden, psychic stab is really fucking good, and you have to be prepared for it. And so Zatu is, I think. Well, Musharna is better, but at 18 points, I don't know if Musharna is actually better value than Zatu. Zatu comes with that great speed tier, great special attack of 95, which for this level is more than it needs, and just a move pool full of great tools. So let's talk about that. Obviously, if you saw my first match, it has that boosting stored power set that can be really nasty, but what sets it apart from the other psychic types is it gets magic bounce, and that means taunt, encore, toxic, will-o-wisp, thunderwave, things of that nature are just not gonna hit it. And there really aren't any like mold breaker Pokemon that we got to worry about. So Zatu immediately has that setup threat, and we were able to demonstrate that week one. Shout out to James for the set. I felt bad about how that match went, but no doubt showed off Zatu's incredible power as it got all 6 KOs. But really what it can do, in addition to that setup threat, it has some breaking potential. This thing could run specs and just blow through things. Zatu is also one of the very rare Pokemon that can both fast and slow pivot. So it can fast pivot with U-turn, and it can slow pivot with teleport. And so that gives Zatu the ability, even as a round one where you're usually wanting something that's going to hit hard and be a focal point of your offense, it can drop right into that support role and do really well. Psychic Flying at this level is a decent defensive typing. And so, I have fast pivots to call out switches and bring guys in, and also slow pivots like teleport to bring in some slower wall breakers for free. And because I was just coming off the high of a finals win, I really wanted to draft Aurorus. My daughter's named Aurora, and I had Aurorus. It didn't quite pop off for me in the last league, but it's a powerful wall breaker. I'm surprised no one drafted it here, and it really fits my play style in terms of a mon that could come many different ways. But James took a look at the board, and he's like, "Yo, man, Crabominable." And I went with it, and I immediately see the appeal. I like the crab. I'm pretty sure I've tried to draft it before, and I've never been able to use it right. But here in this tier, Crabominable has the distinction of having the highest attack stat available. With Iron Fist, its punching moves get boosted to astronomical levels, and it even has Hypercutter to ignore Intimidate. Crabominable, if you look at its Smogon sets, are usually focused around either all-out attacking in Trick Room or a kind of specially bulky attacker with Assault Vest. And the Crab can really do a number of different types of breaking here. I always want to leave the option of Trick Room open. If you look at my team, it's fairly min-maxed in terms of its speed tiers here, but Zatu potentially could do Trick Room, Teleport, Crab, or Teleport to bring Crab in if it's something that it can hit pretty hard. I'm excited to see what it can do, and just immediately having something that is the best at something in the tier. This guy is the best physical wall breaker available, and weirdly, typing wise, works with Zatu. It covers the dark, covers the ice weaknesses. Crab doesn't really care if it switches into a knockoff, because it's just going to naturally hit so hard, even uninvested. So those are the first two, and then that leads me into the third pick, because I was looking to complete a Psychic Fighting Dark Core, pretty standard, and what was something that would cover weaknesses, but also, the third, fourth round is where guys start drafting utility mons, and they come off the board earlier than you might expect, and I always get nervous that I'm not going to have enough removal, even though Xatu passively provides that with Magic Bounce and actively provides it with Defog if I wanted to. But Morpeko, who I just drafted previously as my round 1, and came to every match and always put in work, was a natural fit here. So it takes the electric types for Xatu, it takes dark type attacks for Xatu, not that its bulk is great. It can take psychic and some flying attacks for Crabominable, although flying stab not really that common at this level. But mostly Morpeko combines good offense, stab knockoff, Aura Wheel is just such a great move. The electric dark switcheroo, if you can play around it correctly, is really dangerous. Plus the ability to boost its speed could just mean that it can overwhelm things. And after using it, and after Nixie embarrassed me with it a couple of years ago in DPDL Low Tier, a match I will never forget, I'm now a Morpeko believer, and I'll never sleep on this mon again. It has exactly what it needs to do its job. And the fact that it can be an offensive rapid spinner and turn momentum into its favor real quick while also removing hazards was a nice bonus. So I had my hazard removal set. But what I didn't have so far were hazards. And in the last league, I had been looking long and hard at Whiscash. And to my surprise, Whiscash was still available round 4. So as the wheel came back, I snatched it up. I didn't want to risk it getting nabbed before that. One of the things about this level, there are not a lot of good ground types, and a number of teams did not draft any, which was pretty shocking to me. So to be able to lock down a strong ground stab Pokemon on its own is great, because those are rare. To get one with the water ground typing that's actually not passive at this level was an even further bonus. And of course with Whiscash, one of its big niches is that it can fit Stealth Rocks and Spikes on even attacking sets, which is really, really great. So I can tailor my hazard game to my opponent. One of the concerns I had with drafting Whiscash is that it is a water type that does not resist water. And with Samurott and Barbaracle and Poliwrath all drafted round 1, including my week 2 opponent having one of those 3, I was really worried because for whatever reason, Luki teams are often fairly weak to water. So if you're scouting me for next week, that's what I'm thinking about. And that did initially scare me about Whiscash. You run some calcs, you see that the Whiscash, even though it doesn't resist water, neutral, it's bulky enough to take the hits that it needs to, as long as that mon doesn't have good grass coverage. And one of the perks of Whiscash also is that it's quite light, and so a grass type coverage move, and I'll leave you to figure out what that is, actually doesn't do as much as you'd think to it, which is a bonus. The only thing Whiscash doesn't have, I think, for this level is Flip Turn, which I think is completely tragic, and would elevate this from like a pretty good mon that can be bulky water, ground type attacker, hazard setter, to just an all-around beast, a shit tier Swampert, as it were. So at this point in the draft, I've got my core. The core 4 there is sort of a 4 that I think I can live and die with and build my team around. And now I'm looking at what other pieces do I need. And it was at this point we were looking around, James and I, and it's like, well, man, there are not a lot of special wall breakers out there, and I probably need to get one. And because I went with the Crab over Aurorus, it doesn't really make sense to go double ice and add another bad dual type to the team. even though I could use another special wall breaker. But with Xatu being such a good pivot and Morpeko being a good pivot, James was like, "Yo, how do you feel about Scovillain?" And I'm like, absolutely. First off, Scovillain, I think it's 108 attack and special attack, so it hits hard on either side, especially at this level. And even though Scovillain's got a mediocre ass 75 speed, which is not outrunning much even at this power level, it still has the ability to swing really hard off both wings. Interesting stab combination that's unique, and at this level, if I get it right, hard to wall. Although I will say the number of teams that have fire types that can take hits is pretty surprising. And, most of all, and I was honestly surprised that more of these guys didn't get drafted. I'm thinking Golduck, Ludicolo are still on the board. Manual weather setters, or Pokemon that only click one button and get 2 boosts like that, I think are incredibly valuable. Golduck just clicking the funny rain dance button and becoming a huge monster. Poliwrath is out there. I doubt Kanava is going to use rain, but he has the option. But Scovillain clicks Sunny Day, and all of a sudden, he is a massive problem. That Fire Stab is ripping through anything that doesn't have Flash Fire. Even though the grass coverage is not great if you're taking on fire types, this is something that in the right game, in the right situation, could become a huge monster. So that just secured the breaking power, the breaking core. I have that immediate power lockdown on the team. So at this point, it comes back around the quick wheel because I picked 14th, and I've been trying to pick Spidops for 3.5 years, however long I've been doing Gen 9 draft. Spidops is just a really fun mon that I've wanted to try, and it always seems to go early in drafts, and guys will pick it, use it once, bring it as a suicide hazard lead, and then promptly discard it and never use it. But Spidops has the ability to stake out, and Spidops has a really fun moveset. I want to click First Impression, I want to click U-Turn, I want to see what it can do. Downside, even at this level, Bug Stab, not that great. Arguably, Bug Stab actually matches up better in Overused, with some of the meta threats up there, depending on what's out there. But there is a famous Smogon poster, Morcal, who finds all kinds of creative and inventive sets for Overused, and a few years ago he did a Spidops set that I have saved in my Showdown team builder ever since, and I can't wait to try it. Even though it's geared to Overuse, I just want to see what happens in a funny match where I can just see if Spidops will pop off. But also Spidops gives me Toxic Spikes and Sticky Web and good bulk, so if I want to use it for what most people bring it for, I can, because it's got the circle throw shenanigans. But just a mon I really wanted to try. I am worried that it's not so much a fit on this team. Definitely, if you're looking, at my draft so far, the top 6 picks, we don't love fire types in here, boys. The other issue, of course, even though base 95 is sort of like really good for this level, and I've got Morpeko at 97 and Xatu at 95, I wasn't really comfortable with that, and I wanted more speed. So my goal on the next wheel was to get my speedy boys and at least have that kind of support. And so I've drafted Dracloak before. It was my 7th pick, but Dracloak is awesome, and even at this level, even without Terra, which normally it's like sort of the best shit tier Terra Captain available, could still hit pretty hard. It's got a great move pool. The thing that sets it apart is its 102 speed, and its ability to run support sets. So, Thunderwave, Will-O-Wisp, screens, U-turn, so it has the things it needs to be able to support a team, even if it's not going to be my main attacker. And if you look at my squad, there's no lack of power available. Also, I think just given the amount of hazards I have, I needed a spin blocker. And Dracloak is not a great spin blocker. I'm looking at some of the possible spinners in the tier. If you're looking at this page, you can see Eldegoss. Eldegoss is maybe the only spinner available that Dracloak comfortably switches into. Maybe Quaxwell, maybe Wartortle, but it at least gives me the option. So very happy to have Dracloak back, and it gives me a plus 100 speed tier mon. And then with the wheel coming back, my boy Perugly, I sound like a broken record. I draft Perugly way too often, and Ryan took it super early. So I picked Lopunny, and Lopunny has 105 speed, which at this level is enough. And even though it has a lower attack stat than Perugly, and it doesn't have Defiant to boost it, Lopunny's not that much weaker and can still do the fake out return shenanigans that I think makes Perugly so valuable. But what I also gain in not drafting the same thing for the 5th fucking time is a really versatile normal type that can actually support my team in a number of ways. Lopunny's got a great move pool, great status moves. The only thing it's missing compared to Perugly is knockoff, which is a fairly significant thing. My team doesn't have much in the way of good knockoff users, but with that support move pool, even Healing Wish, can allow me to be more reckless with my breakers and sweepers early in matches. It's got Klutz switcheroo sets. This is something that I think is going to surprise people. And as much as I don't like these weeb waifu Pokemon, I think they're weird, and I've always had that prejudice against Lopunny because it's just designed in a way that feels very un-Pokemon-like to me. Wow, that move pool and that speed stat. I'm excited to see what I can do with it. And then to finish off my team, so I'm looking at my picks. I sort of the biggest weakness I didn't think I had covered well was flying, and other than I guess like a stray Fearow, a Pokemon that walls it all would be Probopass. James also suggested, I've tried drafting Probopass before, I've had mixed results with it, but here at this lower power level, I think its special attack is at least able to keep up. It's another pivot. I have so many pivot options on this team, that slow Volt Switch. But also just having the rock typing here, the steel typing, it gives me some insurance against normal and dragon types, the few that there are. There was a bit of a run on them midway through the draft. And so Probopass gives me that ability. It also has, since Magnet Pull is legal, gives me the ability to trap some steel types. Now, there aren't that many, and the main one that Probopass is good at trapping, Bronzor, was dropped in Grace for reasons unknown. I don't know if Magnet Pull is actually going to come out that often, but it's at least an option that teams have to be prepared for in prep. And finally, my last pick, Weepinbell. I made in the league that I just won. I made some mid-season trades, dropped Swallow and Maractus, and picked up Jinx as a Scarfer and Breaker, and Weepinbell. Because I'm like, fuck, I need a grounded poison. I also want a grass type so that I'm not so water weak. And Weepinbell fills that niche perfectly, especially when you don't have the points for Gloom. So, I was looking at it. Gloom has, 85 special attack. I think Weepinbell has I think it's 80 or 85 special attack. What it has is a higher attack stat, so it's more of the mixed attacker. It's that mini Victory Bell. But I think it sells it short. While Gloom has a lot more bulk, Weeping Bell with Eviolite is able to do just enough of what it needs to, including I was able to have it shut down a no retreat phalanx last season, and it worked perfectly. It's got a really cool move pool. It is a knock user, and it because of those extra offenses, both physically and specially, it has the ability to it has the abilities to surprise some people. And while Weeping Bell requires sort of a very specialized focus in terms of how it's used, I found it's really good at getting that specific job done, and it hasn't let me down yet. And so I think this is a sleeper mon on my team, and just having that grass poison typing, while I'm not too worried about fighting types, I've got a number of good fighting resists. Packing another never hurts. It's an additional fairy resist in the maybe one time per season that's going to be relevant, especially with no Terra Fairy, but mostly having coverage for a lot of the water types too is a nice bonus. So that's the team. Those are my reasons for picking it. I really, really love this squad, and I am a little bummed that as hilarious as it was that Xatu just popped off week one. I didn't really get to see. Week one is about testing out your team, seeing how it fits together, seeing how the builder comes together, and seeing what fits. And I was sort of deprived of that opportunity because, I clicked a funny button in my first mon, swept an entire team, which is great, but also leaves me open. Like the DPDL is incredibly strong and full of talented players. There are no easy weeks, and so I'm excited to see how this team is going to do when I'm actually having to use all the tools at my disposal. Pardon me, sorry, it's allergy season here in Ontario. For whatever reason, it's like late July grass pollen, so I'm a little stuffy. But let's have a look at some of the other teams. I don't have a ton of time to delve into them too much, but I want to give you my general impressions, strengths, weaknesses, and worries for each of them. And this is the Maestro Meloetta's Perspective. I don't think I've played Perspective before. I think they're new to the league, or at least they're new to me. Interesting team, and I don't want to say too much because Perspective and I are playing week 2. Obviously they went for the extremely scary Barbarical, which just hits so hard on the physical side with, I think it's 110 attack and tough claws, even with no Shell Smash. Personally, this was not a first overall pick mon to me, especially without Shell Smash. I think it can fairly easily be walled, but Perspective didn't think so, and I'm interested to see how it does. Interesting squad. Like there's some really cool ideas here. Like, for one, the breaking power and the physical offense with Barbarical, Bouffalon, and Trevenant right off the hop is huge. There's just not a lot of great physical walls in the tier. Teams are really going to be pushed to try and handle all three. And then mid rounds, he goes with sort of the support core. He gets his fairies and his Dragon Steel and Sligu Hisui, who people love. I still don't understand the hype. Maybe I'll get absolutely rocked by it next week and have to eat my words. Togetic, I don't like just because it's too passive, but you have to admit that the typing is extremely appealing. Dedenne. Dedenne's got a really nice speed tier. I think it's 101. So having that Volt switch, never a bad thing. Carkol, I think, is a really, really good spinner. The fact that it can spin, put up rocks and spikes is a great niche, and also it's a deterrent to physical attackers. Because a lot of his team, even though they're strong physically, they're not going to love certain physical moves, but Carkol does. Carkol will punish them. And then obviously my boy Cramorant to the bottom here. It feels kind of tacked on, but it actually fits his team really well. Because Barbaracle, it's a water type, but it doesn't resist water, and it's not coming defensively any weeks. You want it to be smashing things. So having the Cram here to be a bit of a support, maybe pop off once in a while, give especially water attacking consideration of the team. I'll never say no. Next, we got Chris and the Zero Zen Darmanitans, and if you're wondering about the hidden lore here, Pokebaldi, who was the oh god, the Dundee Darmanitans, was a draft league player that played with us. Had decent results in our league, but was a bit of a try hard. Maybe Bits a bit underselling it, and actually went pretty far in the draft scene. Like was hanging out with all the big hitters and played in some fairly big leagues, but also hilariously picked the same group of mons over and over and over again. Show me a draft where he didn't fucking pick Mesprit, but also tragically he at one point quit. I think he's back now. But he quit draft altogether because his family life like completely fell apart. So because because our league has no chill, and he's become a bit of a pariah, Chris has just this is not Pokebaldi, just a bald guy. Decided to rip on him a bit, and honestly, it's fucking hilarious. So here's his team. Chris decided to be the agent of chaos that he usually is. He had 2 picks where he just used a random spinner in round 4 and 5. And actually, for 2 5-point mods, he maybe got the 2 best 5-pointers available, Fungus and Lampent. But the crux of his team, Komala is his number 1, locks down his spinner, and a good normal type attacker. I'm really not sure what sort of the idea was. I think he's just here to shitpost and have a good time. And I think, honestly, he did as much work late in the draft as he did at the beginning. Simisear, he's the only one that drafted a Simi. I think we've had this discussion on the board. I think they're underrated here because of their speed tier. So that gives him a pretty dangerous fire type breaker. Squawkabilly, I don't know. Omerta's like, yeah, this thing's going to pop off. I think it's a overrated breaker, especially if you're relying on hustle. I think some of them get adaptability. The only one that I had on my radar that I would have loved to draft that he drafted is Sudowoodo. I think Sudowoodo's underrated. It has a definite niche. It and Carbink are the only sturdy hazard setters in the tier, but also 100 attack for 8 points. Pretty good. So I think Chris is going to be here for the lulls, and he's going to have fun. And his team is super random, and I don't see a ton of cohesion here, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be fun. Moving from Chris, who's here for chaos, we have Boss, who always drafts just scary fucking teams. His week 1 was already a great demonstration of that. He picked Bombardier. The Burb is one of my go-to low tier guys. I think, honestly, probably shouldn't have been allowed at this power level. Bird is such a great support mon, such a great attacker. It can even do special setup things with Nasty Plot. Like this thing, it sets hazards, it pivots with U-turn and parting shot. Like it does everything. And that dark flying type, yeah, okay, the next team has Murkrow, but like that's not real. Bombardier is real. That stab sucker punch, the stab brave bird, stab knockoff just hits so hard in Eviolite metagame. Honestly, he didn't have to draft anything else. Everything else is gravy. But Boss, in his usual style, just drafts a bunch of killers. Although I will say, Stunfisk is around 2. I thought was a really interesting and unboss-like pick. Boss did tell me he's trying to draft all mods that he's never used before. I actually think he succeeded. I don't know if I've ever seen any of these on his team. Maybe he's picked Blossom before. Um, and so that restricts him a bit, because if you're trying to use only mons you haven't picked before, well, in low tier you can quickly run out of interesting roll compression options. But I think he did a pretty good job. Um, Persian gives him the speed control. Mr. Rhyme is super fucking dangerous. It is a rapid spin away from sweeping your ass, and Psychic Steel is such a potent stab combo. Trubbish as a one-pointer, there's basically no one-pointers that had any value here, but with spikes and toxic spikes, it's that. Blossom with Quiver Dance, and while Dugong is kind of a mediocre water type, it does get Flip. And with Thick Fat, it can take on a few different things. Just be an annoying, bulky special attacker, and he needed a water type, so to be able to get that in the last round is actually really impressive. So knowing Boss, this is going to be a team that we're going to see in at least the semifinals, maybe the finals. He's a good enough coach that even with a team where he's not familiar with any of these guys, he'll find a way to pilot it well, and absolutely one of the contenders. Really well-rounded team. Only thing I would say is, some of the picks are just a little unorthodox, but I see the vision. Okay, so next we got Peter, and I don't know if Peter might also be new to me at DPDL. Mostly I haven't played in the league in a year, so. But Peter drafted a really, really interesting team, and on paper, this is one of the better teams out there, I think. Although he did make some grace trades, and I do want to talk about that. In particular, he originally had Bronzor here, and I actually think, as opposed to Clang, even though Clang is worth more points, his team actually got worse. When you have the breaking power that Peter has available to him, the extra ground immunity and the psychic typing, really, really clutch. Clang can be overwhelmed by psychic types. And I just don't think it's going to be strong enough to do the breaking job, whereas Bronzor can at least be a little bitch, toxic something, and then get out of there. But some really cool, interesting ideas. I think Electabuzz and Torterra is a 1-2 punch off the start. It gives you your breaking power, it gives you your speed, your strong electric type. With so few electric immunes in the tier and so many teams not having any, Electabuzz is going to be a big problem for guys, and Torterra locking down that huge ground stab is also clutch. The draft kind of goes off the rails a bit, though. I understand you want to be less passive, so you drop Bronzor. And Snubble at the bottom is just sort of there as an extra Intim user and to have a fairy. But Wartortle, I think, is a really weak pick, especially since Shell Smash is banned. It's super passive. It's going to get picked on. And even though it synergizes well with what you've got, it's going to be a mon that teams are going to pick on. Murkrow, someone can prove me wrong. I don't think it's a real mon. Raticate, absolutely love. I think it's going to be super underrated here. It felt rich at 15 points, but you look at the speed tier, you look at Guts facade sets, some of the little tools that it's given. If only it had a special attack stat to use that move pool, it'd be so sick. Monferno was a mon that I've wanted to try. Having the firefighting type together with rocks and U-turn is really, really nice. It can be a really good utility mon. It has just enough firepower with its stab moves to make things work. Rabska, I think, was a really underrated pick. Just look at that special attacking stat and tell me why Musharna for 5 points is better. I'll wait. So another new player to me, Irida and the Oxfordshire Ogrepons. This draft, I think, started really promising. The end of it, I'm wondering sort of what the thought process was. Weirdeer Ninetales is just really, really cool. Ninetales, and then Emolga gives you your speed. Strong special attacker with Ninetales and Weirdeer. Weirdeer can go mixed, Weirdeer can go defensive. Preparing for all the different types of Weirdeer sets you could see is sort of what makes it good. However, the mediocre speed is going to hold it back. but normal psychic is like a surprisingly decent type here. Shift tree. Maddie and Nixie were like, Lukey, like, grab shift tree, like, what are you doing? You know, it can do the tailwind shenanigans. I don't know. I always feel like shift tree is just leaving a little bit to be desired. You know, so there's a number of like really strong things here. I think Phione is forever like a fraud watch Pokemon even at this level. But Clefairy is, you know, it's basically the only fairy type available. It's the best one. You know, there's a bunch of really cool ideas like Furret here. And then the low tiers, like, you know, you're attacking on Drillbur as a ground type. I don't think that's going to work that well. You know, luckily Emolga is already an electric immune. You know, but these bottom three, they're lacking in base stats. They have some things they can do, don't get me wrong. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of matches where you're going to have them show up and feel like they're going to do the roles you need them to do. And interesting, if you can get the first 4 picks to work well together, you've got something. Now Ryan and the young Piplups, the Pittsburgh Piplups. Ryan is always the draft kind of cool mons, and I never ever see the vision. You know, round 1 Muck. All right, you know, Muck, yeah, it's a great special wall at this level. It's a good breaker physically at this level, but it can't do both at the same time. I don't know. To follow that up with Turtonator, and so you've got 2 ground weak mons. Even though Turtonator's got that absolutely ridiculous Draco Meteor and it can spin, it doesn't have Shell Smash at that speed. Like, it's not outrunning anything. It's coming here to support. And the tricky thing is just, you know, can you out damage something before you get overwhelmed? Now, he compensated. He picked Purugly here, and I think, again, Purugly's going to actually put in work. The only thing that's faster than it is Persian. And I guess Wugtrio, but, you know, whatever. You know, there's a bunch of cool ideas. I think Swoobat late in the draft, even at 18 points, is actually a good pickup because if it's not the focal point of your team, Swoobat can do some damage. It's 1 Calm Mind away from just running train on everybody. And Ryan actually did draft a legitimate ground type in Vibrava. I just use Vibrava. It didn't come that often. It has all the utility and roll compression of Flygon, but then you look at its stats, and it just doesn't get there. I think it can work at this level. You know, he's got enough other powerful guys. It's just sort of, you know, can Ryan take all these really cool ideas and put them into something cohesive, or is it a case of, you know, it's another group of mons that, you know, they just don't quite fit. Mina Tevis and the Globro gang. So Mina Tevis was a convincing week 1 winner. On paper, really cool team, and they actually showed their chops week 1 where the team really put in work against their opponent. Sandslash, Alola is that nice roll compression, Omastar's your hazards and your special breaker. Can also, you know, click the Rain Dance funny button and then become the strongest thing available. Like, do not fuck with that. Thwacky, I think, is on Fraud Watch, but still having that priority breaking power. Although Mina Tevis didn't draft anything else to really like support that and abuse that, so I do wonder if there's anything. Like, the team on paper is really cool. I love Porygon. Fletchender's cool. I think the Golem pick is maybe their best pick of the draft to get that late. So many teams had no ground types whatsoever, and even if you've got Thwacky, having the threat of Stab Earthquake is so valuable because no matter what, you just have that power available to you. Be like, yo, I'm gonna slap a choice band on this thing and figure it out because not a lot can switch into that shit. If there's anything this team really lacks, though, well, it has that immediate power. The speed tiers, not great. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Eviolite mons is screaming bring knockoff and watch as I'm horribly stat checked. So as much as like the typings are cool, this player has all the key ingredients in a team, so many tools at their disposal. There are some other teams in the league that just based on pure base stats might be a problem. Kanava and the Harlem Harryama. Boy, Kanava, hilarious. I love playing Kanava. And one of the things that you can count on with Kanava is he's going to draft half of the same team every time. And I maybe gave Kanava too hard a time about this. There are some new mons that he's not used before. He's not drafted Pidgeot. He's not drafted Electric, Mighty Anna, or Mudbray. But Poliwrath, Armaldo, Metang, Abomasnow, all things I've seen from him before. Quilava. Quilava is actually really cool, and for 4 points, I think it's underrated. The fact that you can just do Choice Scarf Eruption turn 1 is pretty fucking funny, and for a 4-pointer, that's super valuable. You're going to see Kanava's like usual mix of like bulky offense and stall. Obviously, he's got all the options here. Armaldo being the spinner is a bit unfortunate because like Kanava's like, yo, check this thing out. It's finally Armaldo's strong enough here, and it's got that huge attack. But like, do you want to use it in a situation where you're trying to clean up hazards instead? I don't know. Poliwrath was going to be my round 1 if it had made it to me, so I think it's a great pick. You click Rain Dance. This thing is the strongest breaker in the tier. Has that water immunity, which for the rest of his team is so clutch. And also he drafted Haunter as a revenge pick. Kanava got walled by a FizzDef Haunter earlier this year, and I absolutely loved it. It was a 6 set, and I expect him to bring it at some point. So we got Chad and the absolute Chads. Chad's usual style is just to pick a bunch of the scariest hombres you've ever seen, and just dare you to try and beat him with it. Really cool team. Although I will say his first 2 picks are very like not typical Chad. Wrote him just because it is on like. It's more like your utility, like fill a bunch of roles type thing. But a really, really good mon, and having that good ghost stab is very rare. And obviously the levitate, there's just so much roll compression. So I see the idea there. And then Machoke, super fun. You're going to click no guard dynamic punch, and you're going to have a good time. That gives him the immediate breaking power. Same with Stoutland. I mean, you click fucking Sandstorm on this thing, and Stoutland's all of a sudden way scarier than 12 points. And it hits like an absolute truck with return. Lycanroc Midnight I thought was kind of a questionable pick. At 17, I think it was kind of overrated. Again, the no guard Stone Edge combo is really, really sweet, but it still has that problem where like it's a rock type and it's slow. And is there anything else that I need to say about that? Vanillux, without the benefit of Snowscape or Snow Warning, Vanillux really, really struggles. Its move pool is dire, but it has pretty good base stats and a very high special attacking stat. So for 11 points, it can be, that special breaker. I just don't know how effective it's going to be. Quaxwell is a good versatile spinner. Has some other things it can do. It's not too passive with flip turn. I just happen to have one of the hardest counters to it. But against most teams, it's going to be exactly the kind of good utility mon you hope for. Heatmore, I think everyone decided, especially, James used this in Gen 8 to great effect. It's underrated here. Same with Fearow. Fearow has fucking 100 speed, and you get that stab, Brave Bird, and stab return, and drill run for the steel types. Terrifying. And then Zweilous and Shrootle, be lucky if you see them more than once. Although Zweilous, at least with Hustle, can hit things pretty hard, and Shroodel's got Prankster, so those are all very nice. Bombi's back after a fairly... Oh, well, actually, I guess if there's anything else to say about Chad's team, shocking actually that he did not draft a ground type. Um, no ground type. What are we doing here? Um, so Bombi's back. I know Bombi's had a bit of anxiety about comeback, but Bombi actually drafted a really, really sick team. And the bulk alone from Masharna, Clough, and Torkoal means that he can just absorb anything. And that allows his other, speedier guys to get to work. Clough, I really wanted to draft. It just didn't work out this time. With what I was picking for it to make sense. But like Clough is a regen mon, Clough is a setup sweeper, Clough is a breaker, has a lot of cool things it can do even without Terra. I really think the only panic pick that Bombi made here was Sea King at the end, which gives you a water type, yes, and it gives you an extra electric immune, which is great because, Sand Slash is just, I don't know, even with that ground stab, I feel like Sand Slash is just like a mon that looks good on paper and then struggles in practice. He needed a water type, otherwise he was super water weak. This is kind of a scary team though. If you can find the right mix, like Lanoon Galler, like running around doing parting shot, like knockoff shenanigans, Plusle and Minen all of a sudden are like strong enough here to do stuff and have a good speed tier. Roselia is a fantastic utility mon, and Ninjask, somehow Boz is like, oh, Combuskin with speed boost? No, that's broken. But Ninjask with speed boost. Oh, are we really thinking that Flying Stab is not going to be good here? I don't know. I think it's going to be fantastic. And with all the psychic types running around, Bombi has a team to be terrified of. Really, really like this team. If anything, just, I guess the speed tiers could be a bit better, but otherwise, with Ninjask, you've got that covered. So, Quite Gold, the defending champ, come back from his first championship, and Quite Gold, much like Chad, just seems to take nothing but scary fucking mons and say, "Take me on." And here we go. If there's anything I can say about this team, though, is holy smokes, are we ground weak? And that's really about the main weakness because, Vespiquen covers it and Leaveney 4 times resists it. But these are not the key mons on your team that are going to be winning or losing you games. Leaveney maybe with Sunny Day, but unless you're Kanava and doing heal order shit with Vespiquen, it's not really a win condition. But Samurott will always be a sentimental favorite. Meowstick, let's sort of talk a little bit more about Samurott. It is, it's the ability to be a breaker on both sides. It's got a move pool that's incredible. It's just held back by like its base 70 speed tier. But yeah, all these mons, what Quite Gold's team does really, really well here is he picks high base stat total mons, and that really matters. Cranidos and Bergmite don't matter here. Cranidos, even with that high attack stat, is not going to be doing anything. Bergmite, I think, is his spinner, which is a little scary. I think Leaveney can defog. Vespiquen can defog because it's Natdex. So hazard removal a bit of an issue, but the power from Absol, the breaking power, Ampharos has like 115 special attack. Camerupt has the eruption button, like really, really scary team. Brutal, also another new player to me. Brutal, really, really interesting team. Did also make the right choice and picked a number of high base stat total mons. Even though Magmar and Mischievous are both Eviolite mons and Girafarig, they're also mons that were originally standalone final evolutions, and are powerful. I'm interested to see Avalugg and how it does. At this level, it still always has the problem of like my typing's bad and I'm slow, but it's so bulky. Does that bulk finally, break through at this level? So there's a lot of it's an interesting mix of like speedy attacky guys and then just like super fucking bulky behemoths. Because Carbink and Volibee are mons that are not going down easily. And Wug Trio, maybe this is a power level that Wug Trio can finally shine in. I think if there's any issues with this team, it is you are water weak. Wug Trio and Go-Goat are not going to stop the stronger special attacking water types for very long. And there's no ground type on this team either. And your only electric immune is Pomo. And I think if you're, say, facing the team with Ampharos or Electabuzz or anything like that, you should start game planning now, because those are going to be really, really big problems for you to try and solve. But as a player that I don't know, I'm really, really interested to see what they can do. There's a lot of cool tools here. You've got your hazards, you've got your spin blocking. You've got massive bulk, and you've got a decent amount of firepower as well. So interesting team. Sorry, I don't think Natu's going to be all that real here. This is my week 1 opponent, Sunwaffle, also new to me. Really, really nice player. I think they just made an unfortunate decision in not bringing a Alolan Raticate and not having a Dark type, because on paper this draft is actually pretty fucking cool. You've got all kinds of hazard support for Altaria. Azumarill, even without huge power, is a belly drum button away from just being the biggest fucking monster you've ever seen. Stunfisk Galar has a really cool typing. There's the power there with Victory Bell. Like, there's a lot of really cool ingredients. I think just based on the week 1, everyone's going to see that and be like, okay, so Lukey just showed us that this team is really psychic weak, and I think as a result, and it's going to be a little bit mean, you're going to see teams bring their psychic type attackers into you every single time. And so it's going to be, how well do you play a Alolan Raticate? Are you able to make Frogadier and Reboot into Dark types more often? Like, how are you going to game plan for that? Is it Shadow Sneak on Kecleon? But the Fairy Dragon Steel Core at this power level is really, really cool. And no matter what else you have in the draft, gives you something to work around. It's just sort of, how are you going to address the psychic weakness going forward? So also, I just want to say, I felt really bad about the match, because like 6-0ing somebody right off the start is really tough. And for a new player, like, we want you to feel welcome in DPDL. And I thought Sunwaffle handled that loss with like a lot of grace and sportsmanship, and they seem really cool. So good luck, and I hope you enjoy your time in our league. Okay, so we've got 2 teams left. I'm running out of time, but Koriki always seems to draft as really, really cool teams. There's a lot of like interesting pieces here. There's the Fairy Dragon Steel Core with Mawile and Gabite. Really, the only issue they have is neither of them love taking an EQ. I thought Flareon at 18 is actually the most questionable pick. While it has really scary wall-breaking potential, it's that speed stat. Like, yeah, it's going to hit things hard. It's got Flash Fire, which is nice. But, like, is it the Mon to build your offense around? I don't know. Like, I think there's scarier things lower down the lineup. Swanna can really work here offensively, as well as a support Mon. Swanna has such a sick move pool, and it's just let down by the fact it's not bulky. Manectric is the scariest special breaker on the team, and I think actually underrated at 15 points. It doesn't do a lot of things, but what it does really well. Eldegoss and Duosion is actually a cool regen core. Duosion, I think, is overrated. It's got that huge special attack stat, but it wants to run both regen and magic guard, and it can't. And I think as a result, it's going to struggle. Volbeat, really cool support. And Stunky, can it work? Can it be poor man's Skuntank, which is already a low tier hero, but deemed too strong for this level? I don't know. Cool team, cool ideas. We'll see if it works. And finally, Ibebot, and the mischievous Sableye. minus points for the AI generated logo, but plus points for having the balls to draft this group of mons. 3 ghost types to start. Clearly like shithousery reigns supreme here. I'm honestly not sure what the idea was. But there are some still really cool ideas, like being able to grab Cryogonal late in the draft, even at 17 points, is still really cool and actually fits this team really, really well. And I think it's going to be one of your best mons. Gumshoes, I think, is your physical wall breaker, and you're going to need it because the rest of the team really, really lacks power. You're going to have a hard time breaking through steals. Throw just isn't fast enough to really threaten a lot of the steals that are just going to sit on the rest of your team. But there's some cool support pieces. Glimmet for the hazards, Hatchram for magic bounce, Dusklops is super bulky. But Shedinja is not a real mon, and Sableye I think works if you have the other pieces to support it. But also I'm pretty sure you're brand new to draft. So I want to make sure that you have a good time here. Good luck this season. Please take up people's offers to reach out and ask questions and mock or get ideas for your battles each week, because it does, talking to other people and brainstorming and using the knowledge here. We have years and years of experience playing together, and we also know our opponents fairly well. That can really help, and it also makes it more enjoyable when you have connections with people. There's a lot of really nice players on the server, and I hope you take advantage of that. So anyway, I know I rushed the end of that a bit, but I've gone an hour. I've got to get moving. But thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great season. I can't wait to see y'all out there.